Have you ever felt that? That knot right in your stomach, that feeling where maybe your palms get sweaty, your mind starts racing, just before you know you have to stand up and say something important.
Oh, absolutely. That pre-communication dread.
Yeah. Maybe it was like a huge presentation coming up, or you had to explain something really complex, or maybe, and this is often even tougher, doing it all in a language that isn't your first one. It's that moment, right? Where you just wonder, am I going to find the right words? Will I sound okay? Will they even understand me? That feeling, it's pretty universal, I think.
It really is. That fear of exposure, maybe inadequacy,
Yeah.
it hits deep.
Okay, so let's really unpack this today. We're doing a deep dive into this really powerful story. It comes from a source called The Presentation, Finding Your Voice in English.
And it's such a great narrative for this.
It really is, because it's not just, a simple story about giving a talk. It feels more like a blueprint, almost, for how to navigate that fear, how to focus on what actually matters when you communicate, and ultimately, how to find your own authentic voice. Even, like we said, when you're speaking a second language and the pressure feels immense.
And that's our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
Right? To pull out those core insights, those nuggets that can help you, listening right now, tackle any communication challenge.
Exactly, whether it's in another language or even your own, how to do it with maybe a bit more confidence and, real impact.
What I think stands out so much in this particular narrative is how it makes it all so real. It grounds these sometimes abstract ideas about fear and communication and growth
Right.
in a very specific, very human story. We're not just talking theory here. We're seeing it play out step by step in a way that feels really relatable.
Yeah, you really feel it.
And that offers lessons, I think, concrete lessons that go way beyond just language learning itself.
Definitely. So to do that, we're going to follow the journey of Sami. He's a professional, and the story makes it clear he uses English daily. But then he faces this huge linguistic challenge, a formal presentation to his entire department.
The stakes get raised significantly.
Big did time. So this deep dive, we're going to look at not just how he prepared, technically speaking, but maybe more importantly, what were those mental shifts, those strategies, both practical and psychological, that let him turn something utterly terrifying into, well, a moment of real triumph. So what does Sami's experience mean for your communication challenges? Let's find out. Okay, so first, let's really set the scene. Let's understand Sami's world before this big challenge landed on him.
Yeah. Where was he starting from?
Well, the source tells us he used to struggle, like really struggle, just to say hello in English way back when. But that wasn't him anymore. This isn't a story about a total beginner.
Right. He put in the work already.
Exactly. He'd come a long way. He was, handling his work emails. He was part of the office chats, the day-to-day stuff. And crucially, it says he was learning from every mistake.
That's key, isn't it? That mindset.
Totally. He'd built this solid foundation. You can almost picture him, right? Carefully typing out those emails, maybe pausing a bit before hitting send.
Checking things over.
Or having those quick chats by the water cooler. Slowly, surely, just expanding his comfort zone. He was, functionally pretty good.
And I think that initial level of proficiency is really important here.
Right.
Because Sami wasn't starting from zero, it makes his situation immediately relatable for so many people listening.
Yeah, lots of people are in that boat.
Right. You've got a decent handle on things for everyday tasks. You can communicate. But, and this is the subtle point the source brings out, there's a huge difference, isn't there? Between that casual chat, or writing an email, or talking in a small group,
Oh, yeah.
and the high-stakes arena of public speaking.
Yeah.
Standing up in front of everyone.
It's a whole different ballgame.
Think about it. A quick chat, you've got back and forth. You can pause, maybe use your hands to explain something.
Yeah.
The pressure is relatively low.
You can see if they're getting it.
Exactly. An email, you draft it, you read it, you tweak it, you send it when you're ready. You've got control.
Total control. Delete, rewrite, perfect it.
Right. But standing alone, in front of an audience, that's fundamentally different. The stakes just shoot way up.
That's such a crucial distinction you're making, because when you're on stage, like Sami was about to be, everything changes. It's not that relaxed give and take anymore. You can't just, type out your thoughts or rely on someone nodding. Suddenly, it's one-to-many. It feels like a performance.
Performance anxiety kicks in.
And you're expected to keep it flowing, project confidence, get complex ideas across clearly. And you don't have that safety net of immediate feedback or the backspace key.
No backspace key in real life.
Exactly. It's like, maybe you jog around your neighborhood regularly, you're fit enough, you can stop, you can walk, change your route if you want.
Sure.
Then suddenly someone tells you, okay, next week you're running a marathon in a stadium, everyone's watching.
Whoa. Okay. Yeah. Big leap.
Right. You might have the basic fitness, but the sustained effort, the mental game, the public scrutiny, it's a completely different challenge. And the source really nails this by emphasizing his existing comfort, the emails, the chats, learning from mistakes, just to show how big this new ask really was.
Precisely. And that heightened demand, that leap, brings us right to the moment it all shifted for Sami.
And it was just so abrupt. Like, the source paints it as a normal Monday morning, everything routine until his boss, Mr. Kamal, just drops it on him.
No warning.
Nope. Just, Sami, I want you to present our team's monthly report next Friday.
Wow.
And Sami's reaction, it's captured so perfectly, that kind of chirked out question. Me, sir, in English.
You can feel the blood drain from his face.
Oh, totally. You can almost feel his hands go cold, his mind just reeling, that sudden flood of dread.
And this is where I think the story gets really interesting, because the fear Sami feels isn't simple. It's layered.
Layered how?
Well, it's not just the normal anxiety about public speaking, right?
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, lots of us feel even in our native language. Fear of judgment, fear of stumbling, boring people.
Oh, yeah. Been there.
But for Sami, it's that anxiety compounded by this other huge layer, doing it in a second language.
Ah, okay. Double trouble.
Exactly. And this raises a really important point. What specific psychological barriers pop up when you know your fluency isn't maybe 100% guaranteed? When you're super aware that every word choice, every pronunciation, every little grammatical slip might be noticed, might be judged. And then how does the pressure of a professional setting where your competence, your credibility is kind of on the line, how does that amplify those language insecurities?
It magnifies everything.
It really does. It taps into that phenomenon, of imposter syndrome, that feeling like you're a fraud, even if you're actually capable.
Right.
In a language context, it's feeling like your English or whatever the language is isn't good enough to really show how smart or capable you are professionally. It leads to this deep self-doubt.
That's such a critical insight. It's not just about getting the words right. It's about the fear of being judged for how you say them. The fear that your message won't land properly, not because of the what, but because of the how. It taps into these really personal worries about, are you smart enough? Are you professional enough?
Exactly. It's deeply tied to identity and self-worth.
And I just wonder, as you're listening to this, have you ever had a moment like that, where some unexpected request just pushed you way, way outside what you thought you could handle? Especially in an area where you felt maybe less than totally confident. Could be a new skill, a public thing, or maybe exactly this, speaking in a language where you felt you were still learning.
It's a tough spot to be in.
Totally. And Sami's quiet response in the story, after Mr. Kamal asks him, he just says, okay, I'll try. That simple phrase speaks volumes, doesn't it? About the internal battle, the courage it took just to say yes. #tag2, panic, practice, and the power of practical wisdom.
So he says yes, but internally, the storm is raging.
Oh, yeah. What happens right after that? The source nails it. Sami goes straight into panic mode. Total panic.
Understandably.
He calls Lena, clearly someone he trusts, a friend maybe, and it all just spills out. You can hear the desperation, and he wants me to speak for 10 minutes. In English.
10 minutes can feel like an eternity when you're terrified.
Right. And then he just admits it, raw and honest. That's terrifying. And Lena's response, it's amazing. She laughs, but kindly, not laughing at him.
Empathetic laughter.
And she just says, that's great. Which is so counterintuitive, isn't it? When someone's panicking.
It really is, but it's also incredibly insightful. First off, Sami doesn't suppress the panic. He voices it. That's terrifying.
Gets it out there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He externalizes the fear, which is often the very first step to managing it. You have to acknowledge it. You can't just stuff it down.
Right. Pretending doesn't help.
Not at all. And Lena's reaction, that kind laugh, and it's like a masterclass in emotional intelligence. Psychologists might call it a cognitive reframe.
Okay, what does that mean?
It means she doesn't dismiss his fear. She hears him. She gets that it's scary for him. But she immediately and positively reframes the situation. She sees the opportunity hidden inside the challenge.
Shifting the perspective.
Precisely. Think about how powerful that is.
Yeah.
To have someone in your corner who can validate your feelings. Yes, this is hard, but also gently pivot your focus. But wow, what a chance for you.
Yeah, that's huge.
It changes the internal story from this is impossible doom to, okay, this is scary, but maybe it's also a chance to grow. That mix of validation and positive reframing, it's like pouring water on the fire of panic.
And Lena doesn't stop there. She doesn't just say, that's great, and hang up. She gives him this core piece of advice. It's so simple. The source captures it perfectly, almost like a little mantra. Don't try to sound perfect. Be clear. Be you.
So much wisdom packed into 7 words.
Right. It sounds simple, but when you break it down, it's got layers for communication in any situation, not just language learning.
Absolutely. Let's unpack it. Don't try to sound perfect. Why is that the first thing she says?
Good question. Why?
Well, because perfectionism, especially in language learning, is often the enemy, right? It kills progress. It crushes connection.
How so?
If you're constantly chasing this ideal of like native-like fluency or a perfect accent, first off, that's often unrealistic and maybe not even necessary.
Okay.
But more importantly, that intense focus on being flawless creates massive internal pressure. You hesitate, you get self-conscious, you're terrified of making any mistake.
Yeah, you freeze up.
Exactly. Your brain is so busy scanning for errors, it can't focus on the real job,
Yeah.
getting your message across and connecting with the people listening. So, big picture. It's about shifting your goal from performance, how good do I sound, to communication, how well am I connecting? How clear is my message?
Letting go of perfection frees up your brain.
Totally. Which leads right into our second point. Be clear.
Okay, so clarity over complexity.
Precisely. Clarity is king. It's not about wowing people with fancy words or super complex sentences. It's about making sure your audience gets your point with the least amount of effort possible.
Making it easy for them.
Yes. The source even mentions how Lena and Sami work together to cut long words into clear phrases. That's a concrete strategy.
Can you give an example?
Sure. Instead of saying something like, our synergistic cross-departmental endeavors have yielded demonstrable amelioration concerning our primary fiscal metrics.
Whoa, okay. Lost me already.
Right. You could say, our teams worked well together and our financial results got much better. Simple, direct, clear.
Much better.
It's about simplifying, streamlining, focusing on the core message. It's actually an act of empathy towards your audience. You're making their job of understanding easier, and that builds trust because you're obviously trying to help them.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Don't be perfect, be clear. And the third part, be you.
Ah, yes. Be you. This one might be the deepest. What does it even mean to be you when you're speaking a second language, especially when you feel like your vocabulary is limited or your grammar isn't perfect?
Yeah, what does that look like?
It means holding on to your personality. Your sense of humor, if you have one.
Yeah.
Your unique way of seeing things. Your natural style. Even if the words you have feel, well, finite. Or your accent isn't standard.
So don't try to be someone else just because you're speaking English.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Authenticity builds trust and connection in a way that perfect grammar never, ever will. People connect with real human beings, not language robots. Allowing yourself to be you, even with linguistic wobbles, shows honesty. It invites the audience in. And as we'll see with Sami, that vulnerability, it actually strengthens the communication. It makes the connection deeper.
Wow. That advice, don't be perfect, be clear, be you, it really goes beyond just language, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Think about, I don't know, a tough conversation at work or a job interview or even talking to your family about something important.
Any high-stakes communication.
Yeah, how can you bring your real self to it? How can you focus on being clear instead of trying to sound super impressive or using words that aren't really you? Sami's story really shows how powerful that shift can be.
It's foundational.
So, besides this amazing advice, the source also shows us the practical stuff Lena and Sami did. They didn't just talk theory, they made slides, practiced aloud, cut long words into clear phrases.
Getting hands-on.
Yeah, that hands-on collaborative work. Making the slides, refining the language together. It takes this huge, scary thing, the presentation, and breaks it down into smaller, manageable steps.
Reduces the overwhelm.
Totally. And that detail about practicing aloud, that's so different from just thinking it through in your head, isn't it?
Oh, vastly different. When you actually speak the words, you engage different brain circuits. You're hearing the motor control for your mouth and tongue.
You actually hear yourself.
Yes. You hear the rhythm. You feel where the sentences flow or where they get clunky. You catch yourself stumbling on certain words. It solidifies everything, the content, the delivery, in a way that silent rehearsal just can't.
It's like building muscle memory for speaking.
Exactly. You're literally training your mouth, your vocal cords, and your brain's language pathways to work together more smoothly. This reduces the mental effort needed when you actually do it for real.
So it's like the difference between looking at sheet music and actually playing the song on the piano.
That's a perfect analogy. Language production, especially in a second language, takes significant cognitive resources. Practicing aloud helps automate parts of that process.
Frees up brain space for the actual performance.
Precisely. It's proactive, it's practical, it's about reducing friction and building fluency through doing. A core part of preparing for any big communication moment.
Okay, so Sammy's got Lena's advice ringing in his ears. They've drafted the slides, simplified the language, but he didn't just stop there, did he?
No, the real work was just beginning in many ways.
Right. The source then takes us into, like, the heart of his effort, the grind. It describes his routine. Every night, Sami practiced in front of the mirror, and he was typing himself, recording himself.
This is the part nobody sees, but it's often the most critical part. The disciplined, maybe lonely, consistent effort.
Yeah, the late nights, just him in the mirror.
And there's such value in that self-reflection, that objective self-assessment,
Mhm.
recording yourself, watching yourself. It gives you feedback you just can't get otherwise.
What kind of feedback?
Well, you actually hear your pace. Are you rushing, dragging? You identify those filler words, the ums and uhs that you might not even realize you're using.
We all have those.
Absolutely. You can assess your pronunciation more objectively. Hear how your sentences actually flow or don't flow. It creates this feedback loop for your brain.
Okay, so your brain hears the mistake and adjusts.
Exactly. It notices the gap between what you intended to say or sound like and what actually came out. And that drives adjustment. It's fundamental for building that linguistic muscle memory we talked about.
Making it more automatic.
Yes. The more automatic the words and phrases become, the less brain power you need just to produce the language. And that frees you up to focus on the message, on connecting with the audience. It also builds real deep confidence because the material feels more familiar, more ingrained.
So what specific things do you imagine Sami might have caught by recording himself or watching in the mirror?
Oh, lots of things probably.
Yeah.
Maybe he noticed he was talking way too fast when he got nervous.
Yeah, common one.
Or maybe he saw a nervous habit, like fidgeting or looking down too much. Watching himself could help him consciously work on projecting more confidence through his body language.
Standing taller, making eye contact with his reflection.
Exactly. Maybe he identified specific sounds he kept tripping over, or certain words that always made him hesitate. It's like becoming your own coach. You get that raw, honest feedback, and you can immediately try to adjust it in the next repetition.
Tough love, but effective.
Fair.
And then amidst all this serious solitary practice, the source gives us this absolutely wonderful human detail.
I know the one you mean.
He even practiced in front of his little brother, who gave him a thumbs up after every sentence.
It's such a beautiful touch, isn't it? Pure gold.
It really is. Why is that kind of low-stakes audience just so valuable? Especially when you're working on something vulnerable, like speaking another language.
Oh, it's incredibly valuable.
Yep.
Think about it. Non-judgmental feedback. Pure encouragement. His little brother probably isn't analyzing his grammar or critiquing his accent.
Right. Just way to go, big brother.
Exactly. It's pure affirmation of effort and presence. It teaches us so much about the need for psychological safety during practice.
Psychological safety.
Yeah, creating a space where it feels safe to try, safe to stumble, safe to make mistakes without fear of harsh judgment or negative consequences.
Like a rehearsal where mistakes are okay, even expected.
Precisely. And those mistakes are met with acceptance, maybe even that positive reinforcement, the thumbs up. You're not being graded, you're being encouraged. That fosters the courage to keep trying, to push through the awkwardness.
Imagine Sami messing up a word and his brother just gives him that thumbs up anyway. Like, keep going, you got this.
That simple gesture is huge. It communicates belief. It counters that internal critic that's always ready to pounce on errors. It builds confidence, literally sentence by sentence.
So the takeaway is, find your own little brother.
Basically, yes. Find that safe space, a trusted friend, a supportive family member, maybe a colleague you feel totally comfortable with, someone who will cheer you on, not tear you down. That positive reinforcement, especially when you feel vulnerable, it's incredibly powerful for building up resilience before you face the real higher stakes audience.
Building up that inner strength.
Exactly. Self-compassion, resilience, belief in yourself.
And what was the result of all this? The mirror work, the recording, the little brother test. The source sums it up so simply. And every time, Sami got a little better.
No magic wand.
Nope. No sudden leap to perfection overnight. Just incremental progress, getting a little better each time he put in the work.
And that really speaks to the larger truth about learning anything complex, doesn't it?
How so?
Whether it's a language, playing the guitar, learning to code, it's usually a marathon, not a sprint. Real, lasting improvement comes from that consistent, often unglamorous, day-in, day-out effort.
Sticking with it.
Yes. It's the accumulation of those small, sometimes barely noticeable gains. You don't wait for some big breakthrough moment. You just show up, you do the reps, you trust the process. Each little repetition, each small correction, each tiny step forward, they all add up. Consistency and discipline often beat short bursts of intensity for long-term results.
So those tiny improvements, day after day, they build the real foundation.
They absolutely do. They build the skill, the muscle memory, and crucially, the underlying confidence.
Okay, so the practice is done. The late nights, the mirror, the thumbs ups. The day arrives, Friday morning.
The moment of truth.
Yeah. And the source puts us right there with Sami, standing outside the conference room, slides are ready, but his heart pounding like a drum against his ribs.
You can feel the tension.
Totally. And we get that internal monologue, that flood of anxiety thoughts amplified by the whole second language thing. What if I forget a word? What if they laugh?
Those classic pre-performance jitters, the fear demons whispering in your ear.
Exactly. They haunt pretty much anyone in that situation, right? That cold wave of self-doubt just washing over all the preparation he did. It's such a human moment.
It really is. And it's a powerful reminder, isn't it, that even with meticulous preparation, hours and hours of practice, the fear can still be incredibly intense right before you step out.
Preparation doesn't magically erase fear.
Not at all. It helps manage it, it builds competence, but the fear itself, often still there. And this reminds us that courage isn't about not feeling fear. It's about feeling the fear and deciding to act anyway.
Teaching the butterflies to fly in formation, like you said.
Exactly. It's about action in the presence of fear. And this feeling, this pre-presentation anxiety, it's something you listening have probably felt too. Before your own big moments, it connects us. It's part of the shared human experience of vulnerability.
But then right there, in that moment of peak anxiety, something shifts. He remembers something Lena told him, a second piece of vital wisdom.
Ah, yes. The other key insight.
The source says he recalled her words. Speak like you're helping someone, not impressing someone.
Such a simple yet profound reframe.
He takes a deep breath, holds on to that thought, and then he steps inside the room.
And this piece of advice, this is where I believe the real transformation happens for Sami, because it offers this incredibly powerful shift in perspective.
How so? What does it change?
Think about it. If your main goal, your guiding principle, changes from, I need to impress these people with my perfect English, my amazing slides, my brilliance.
Right, the performance mindset.
To, I need to help these people understand this information, to clarify things for them, to share knowledge, to serve their comprehension. The pressure changes completely.
It takes the focus off you.
Exactly. It shifts the spotlight from self-remark, that internal chatterbox worrying, how am I doing? Am I messing up? Do they think I'm good enough? To service focusing on the audience. Are they getting this? Is this clear? Is this useful for them?
That's a big shift.
It is. And this brings up a key question. How does that reframing actually reduce self-consciousness? How does it allow for more natural, effective communication?
Well, I guess if you're focused on them, you have less bandwidth to worry about yourself.
Precisely. When your attention is directed outward, towards the listener and their needs, your own internal anxieties tend to shrink. Because the stakes aren't primarily about your ego or your performance anymore. They're about the shared goal of understanding and connection. It subtly changes the dynamic from a presentation to an audience, to a communication with an audience, even if you're the only one talking initially.
Wow, that's incredibly powerful. And again, it applies way beyond just presentations. Right?
Absolutely, everywhere.
Like imagine going into a difficult conversation, maybe a negotiation, or just explaining something complex to a friend or family member. If your mindset is, I want to help them understand where I'm coming from, instead of, I need to win this argument, or I have to sound perfectly persuasive.
The whole interaction changes. It becomes less adversarial, more collaborative.
Yeah, it turns communication from like a potential battle into an act of empathy. Putting their understanding first. That's a game changer.
It truly is. It's a strategy for more selfless and ultimately more effective communication.
Okay, so Sami takes that thought, help, don't impress, takes a deep breath, and walks in.
Showtime.
The room quiets down. All eyes are on him. He clicks the first slide, Starts off maybe a little shaky. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sammy, and I'll walk you through our work this month.
Taking the plunge.
And then it happens. That moment every language learner dreads, the stumble. The source lays it bare. He stumbled on a few words, said statistics instead of statistics.
Ah, that micro moment that feels like an eternity.
Totally. And it's such a common slip, right? A little phonetic tangle. Not a huge conceptual error, but an audible mistake.
And for someone already feeling insecure, that kind of slip can feel absolutely devastating. It's that fear realized. I've been caught out. My imperfection is exposed.
Yeah, the fear that everyone noticed, everyone's judging.
Exactly. For many people, that one little stumble could derail everything, send them spiraling into more anxiety, making it impossible to get back on track. That inner critic just starts screaming, "See, you failed."
But Sammy's reaction, this is the pivot. This is where it gets really interesting. He doesn't ignore it. He doesn't just blush and power through, pretending it didn't happen.
What does he do?
The source says he immediately, honestly, just corrects himself. He says, sorry, I meant statistics, still learning.
Wow, okay. That takes guts.
Right. So simple, so human, so disarmingly authentic.
And what's really striking then is the audience's reaction. This is crucial. The source says, the room chuckled, and Sammy smiled.
A chuckle, not laughter at him.
No, it sounds like a warm, sympathetic chuckle. A chuckle of recognition, maybe empathy, shared humanity.
Like, yeah, we get it, it happens.
Exactly. And this is where we have to ask, how does owning your mistake, showing that vulnerability, actually build connection instead of destroying it?
It's counterintuitive, isn't it?
It is. But Sammy's quick, humble correction, that still learning,
Yeah.
it showed courage. It showed self-awareness. It reminded everyone in that room that he's a human being making a real effort.
Not pretending to be perfect.
Right. And that authenticity, it often connects far more deeply than presenting a flawless but maybe sterile facade. People trust vulnerability more than they trust fake perfection.
So that specific moment, the static slip and the honest correction, that's the real aha moment.
I think it is. For Sammy, for the audience, and for us listening, it reveals the power of embracing imperfection. It diffused the tension instantly.
You can almost feel the air change in the room, and maybe inside Sammy too, because the source tells us what happened next. As he kept speaking, he started to feel, okay, words flowed.
The snowball effect of confidence.
Yeah. He cleared that first big hurdle, the fear of messing up, not by avoiding it, but by handling it with grace. And once that happened, the act of speaking itself started to feel easier, more fluid.
The momentum builds.
Exactly. And he starts using those simple, clear phrases they practiced, as shown in this chart. Let's take a quick look at. One challenge we faced was...
those linguistic anchors.
Right. They're not fancy, but they're clear, functional. They help him keep the message moving forward smoothly without having to search for complex words he might stumble on. They become like comfortable handholds for him and for the audience, too.
Making it easy to follow along.
And as he gets more comfortable, something else emerges.
Ah, the personality starts to shine through.
Yeah. The source says, he even added a joke. In this graph, the red line is our mistake. The green line is our improvement.
Haha, nice. Self-deprecating, relevant.
And the reaction, people laughed kindly.
Kindly, that word is important.
Yeah.
Again, not laughing at him, laughing with him.
So what does that use of humor tell us?
Well, it shows he's not just reciting facts anymore. He's comfortable enough to inject personality, to connect on a human level. It demonstrates not just language ability, but cultural awareness, emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
He's truly being himself now.
Back to Lena's advice.
Exactly. And this raises the question, how much does showing your personality, being authentically you, enhance communication, especially when there might be language barriers?
It seems like it builds connection more than perfect grammar does.
I think so. It signals confidence, relatability. It tells the audience, I'm not just a talking head delivering data. I'm a person sharing something with you. That kindly laughter shows the audience is right there with him, rooting for him.
And the final line of that section just nails the internal shift. Sammy's hands stopped shaking. He was doing it.
Perfect. From panic to presence. The physical manifestation of the fear receding as the connection builds. Beautiful.
So Sammy reaches the end. He finishes his presentation, and the source describes this really interesting moment. When he finished, there was a pause.
That pregnant pause.
Yeah. Not an awkward silence, it feels like, but maybe a pause of processing, taking it all in.
Exactly. It suggests the audience wasn't just passively listening. They were actively engaged, thinking about what he'd said. It's a sign the message landed. They required a moment to digest.
And then, after that pause, applause breaks out, led by Mr. Kamal himself.
The ultimate validation.
Yeah.
Especially coming from the boss who gave him the terrifying assignment in the first place.
Right. That applause, especially after the pause, feels like genuine appreciation, confirmation that he didn't just survive it, he actually succeeded.
Absolutely. It signifies understanding, respect, and approval.
And then comes the verbal feedback, which is just so revealing. Mr. Kamal looks right at him and says, "That was clear, professional, and honest. Great job, Sami."
Clear, professional, honest, powerful words.
And then another senior manager adds something else. "Your English is simple but strong. You kept everyone with you."
Simple but strong, and kept everyone with you. Let's really dissect that praise for a second.
Okay. What stands out to you?
Well, notice what they didn't say. No one said, "Wow, your accent was perfect," or "Your vocabulary is incredible," or "You sounded just like a native speaker."
Right. None of that.
The praise is entirely focused on the impact and the qualities of his communication. Clarity, professionalism, honesty, simplicity, strength, and that crucial outcome, audience engagement, kept everyone with you.
So it wasn't about linguistic gymnastics.
Not at all. And this hammers home a vital point. What's actually more valuable in communication? Is he showing off a huge vocabulary and complex sentences? Or is it delivering a message that's clear, strong, honest, and actually connects with your audience, keeping them engaged?
Seems like the connection and clarity won.
Overwhelmingly. This whole narrative underlines that effective communication isn't about chasing some mythical standard of linguistic perfection. It's about clarity of message, authenticity of delivery, and the courage to connect human to human. Sami succeeded because he prioritized helping his audience understand, and he was brave enough to be vulnerable. That trumped everything else.
And that brings us right to Sami himself, his internal transformation. The source says he beamed. You can just picture the relief and pride, and he has this powerful realization.
A big takeaway.
He thinks, "I'm still learning, but I'm not afraid now."
Ah, that is just perfect. Not afraid now.
It's not that the fear is gone forever, maybe, but its power, broken. That journey from terrifying at the beginning to not afraid now, that's the core shift, isn't it?
It absolutely is, the enduring lesson. He acknowledges that language learning is ongoing. I'm still learning. That's realistic humility. But the crippling fear associated with it, that's been conquered.
He faced the dragon and won.
He did. He knows he might still make mistakes. He knows he's still learning. But he also knows now, deep down, that he can handle it. He can navigate imperfections with grace and still succeed, still connect, still get his message across effectively.
That realization feels so crucial. It's like shifting from seeing mistakes as proof of failure
to seeing them as just part of the process, part of learning, part of being human. He's moved from being stuck inside his own head, worrying about his performance.
Right, the self-focus.
To focusing outward on the message and the audience. This newfound courage isn't about being magically fearless. It's about daring to show up authentically, daring to be vulnerable, and understanding that genuine connection is far more powerful than perceived perfection. Every single time.
It's a win not just for his English, but for his confidence, his whole sense of self.
Exactly. It's profound personal growth, fueled by facing that fear head on. Hashtag outro.
So when we look back at Sami's deep dive into public speaking in English, it really shows us something fundamental, I think. The true power in communication. It isn't really about using the fanciest words or having a perfect accent or sounding exactly like a native speaker.
Not at all.
It's about speaking with heart, with clarity, and maybe most importantly, with courage. His English was described as simple but strong. And that, combined with his willingness to be vulnerable, to be real, that's what allowed him to connect so deeply and deliver his message with real impact.
And it's such a potent reminder for all of us, isn't it, that every single challenge we face in communication, especially maybe when we're navigating a new language or a new situation, it's a step. It's part of a bigger journey of building confidence and skill.
Yeah.
I love how the source puts it, summing up that cumulative effect.
Yeah.
Every hello, every mistake, every brave sentence leads you here.
Every little bit counts.
Exactly. Each small step you take, every time you push just a little bit past your comfort zone, you're building that muscle, the muscle of confidence, the muscle of competence, not just in language, but really in any part of your life where you need to find and use your voice.
So thinking about that, what does this all mean for you listening right now in your own life? We've walked through Sami's journey, finding his authentic voice in English, facing down that fear.
But it makes you wonder, doesn't it? It raises this bigger question that goes way beyond just language. Where else in your life, maybe in your job, maybe in your relationships, maybe just in your own personal growth,
Mhm.
where are you holding back? Where are you not quite speaking with heart because you're afraid of not being perfect?
That fear of imperfection runs deep for many of
It
us.
really does. So how can Sammy's story maybe inspire you? Inspire you to choose clarity over chasing perfection, to choose courage over being paralyzed by fear. In any communication challenge you face, big or small,
Something to really reflect on.
definitely
Yeah.
think about it, and maybe, just maybe, the next time you feel that knot starting to form in your stomach, that familiar wave of anxiety, maybe you'll remember Sammy,
Mm.
and maybe you'll step into that moment with just a little less fear
Mhm.
and a whole lot more heart.